Good morning, Kate here bringing you this week's Monday mission, and this is our 30th Monday mission. It's our 30th email together. I can't even believe it. So every 10 missions, I do a Q&A, and so either that's a question or scenario that you've submitted that you'd like me to talk through, or you've answered polls that I've put out on Instagram, and I'll take the majority of the answer, the ones that were answered the most, and address those topics. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to do a couple of thought breakdowns or thought downloads based on a certain thought that many of us have. We're going to do two thoughts. The ones that you guys had answered are going through your mind often. We're going to talk about worrying. So when asked what impacts you the most, a lot of you had indicated that worrying really impacts your daily life. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to let something go. So this was one that came up when asked, what you have the most trouble with letting go of something, whether it's a comment or, an argument or something that happened. Just being able to make space and come to terms with it and move past it was difficult. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about snapping at our kids. So I'm actually glad to do this one because this is something that I've worked through a lot and still have to work through. But it's a really great topic for moms and understanding why that happens and what we can do about it. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about anxiety for a little bit because when I had asked how often anxiety impacts you, the majority of you answered daily. So it's obviously something that is impacting us. So I want to bring that up. So we're going to talk about those 5 topics today, and then I'll give you things that we can do, strategies that we can do for each of these, and those will be your missions to do this week. Okay. So the first one is doing a thought breakdown or a thought download, and it all goes back to the understanding that I've mentioned in many of our videos that we have, a situation that happens, and then we tell ourselves a story about that situation, or we attach meaning. We make that situation mean something. Okay, the situation is actually neutral, but we tell ourselves a story about it, and that story or meaning leads to feelings. Those feelings lead to behaviors, action or inaction, and then we get some kind of result. Okay, so the two top thoughts that you guys wanted to break down and do thought downloads on were my husband never helps out around the house and my mother-in-law hates me. So I'm going to start with the first one. My husband never helps out around the house. So that would go in our situation line, okay? But remember, the situation is neutral. But a word like never is not neutral, right? That implies a lot of meaning. So the situation really is maybe you asked your husband to do something and he didn't do it, or there were dishes in the sink and he didn't wash them. Okay, so let's say that that's the situation. There were dishes in the sink and he didn't wash them. That's the situation. It's neutral. It's not good or bad. It doesn't create negative or happy feelings. It's completely neutral. It just is what it is. There were dishes in the sink and he didn't do them. Okay? The story that we tell ourselves is that, oh, he didn't do the dishes again. I have to do everything around here. He never helps out. He never does anything to help me. Look at him just sitting on that couch, resting while I am doing 8,000 things, right? So this is your spiraling, okay? But the story, my husband never helps out around the house. There are a couple things we can do with that. First of all, is that true? Okay, because listen, the story that he never helps out around the house leads to feelings of resentment, anger, frustration, just, not good feelings, right? And what kind of behaviors are we going to do then? Do we give the silent treatment? Do we make snarky comments? What is our behavior then? The result may be, well, we weren't very kind, right? Or we weren't our best selves. And do you think he's going to want to help, or anyone's going to help you if you're not being very nice to them? So then you get the very situation and story that you're telling yourself. He continues to not help out around the house. Okay? Do you see how the circle could go, right? And that's the spiral. So there are a couple things that we can do. My husband never helps out around the house. Never is a pretty extreme word. And whenever I have a thought that uses the words like never or always, I always try to catch myself because those are extreme words and often those extremes are not true. Okay, so does he really never help out around the house, or is it just not in the way that you would like him to? Does he do other things to help around the house and help the family, right? So it's actually looking at, at those things. Does it come specifically down to, he doesn't do the dishes, right? Because understanding how other people come to situations is really important here. So you both come to this situation of the dishes not being done, okay? And you have a map and he has a map. And each of you has this map that was created through your own childhood experiences, your parents, your siblings, your teachers, family, friends, coaches, society, right? And your maps are going to be very different. His map may be in the country on a farm. Your map may be in a busy city, right? But they're very different. And so they're going to come to situations, neutral situations, differently. One is not wrong or right. One is not better than the other. They're just different. And they may show up in different ways. So he doesn't do the dishes. If you think, if your thought is he never helps out around the house, I'm so underappreciated. He never does anything. I have to do this all on my own, right? For those thoughts to be true, think about his map and his thought process. For that to be true, his thought would have to be, I see those dishes in that sink and I'm not touching them because she doesn't deserve my help around this house. She's the worst. She should have to do everything on her own. Do you see where I'm going with this? So his thought process would have to be really, really negative and coming from a place of like hating you. And that's why he doesn't do the dishes. Okay. So think of just is that realistic, right? That's really what's going on. And then have a conversation about it. Okay, I've had millions of conversations. I've told him how many times that I want him to do the dishes and he just doesn't do them. Okay. And remember our trick? Yeah. And okay, then maybe it's something where he doesn't do the dishes, but he does these other things, okay? Because when you break it down, well, if he did the dishes, then I could do these other things. Okay, well, are there other things that he can take off your plate so that doing the dishes doesn't seem like this huge task that you can't get done, right? So I just want to break it down that when you have these thoughts, and we all have them, but when you have these thoughts that come up, especially with those extreme words, always, never, it's really important to do this download and think, what is the story I'm telling myself? What feelings does it lead to? And then what are my actions and what result am I getting? I'm getting that the dishes aren't done or that I have to do them again. And then I have this resentment that I'm holding on to, right? That isn't good for anyone and it's not productive, right? So take some power over it, reclaim the situation, and figure out what story you're telling yourself and maybe change the story. And ask yourself, have I actually directly asked him to do the dishes? Or am I just assuming that when he sees a dirty sink of dishes that he wants to do them and he's choosing not to, right? It may be hard for you to leave dishes in the sink. Go to bed with dishes in the sink. It may not be hard for him at all to go to bed with dishes in the sink. And that's okay, but it just needs to be a conversation. But thinking that he's doing this out of total spite and trying to, you know, make you have to do everything does not lead to a good place, okay? So the other one, my mother-in-law hates me. Same thing. Your mother-in-law, unless she has directly said the words to you, I hate you, which maybe she has, but unless she directly says, I hate you, then my mother-in-law hates me is not the situation. It's the story that you're telling yourself. And that story, my mother-in-law hates me, leads to feelings of underappreciation, contentment, resentment, anger, right? So your behavior might be to withdraw, be snarky, not want to be around them, whatever. What kind of result's going to come from that? She's going to start treating you a certain way that reinforces the story that you're telling yourself. Okay? So understanding too that our brain, when it tells us a thought, when our brain has a thought, it looks for evidence that it's true. Okay, because that's what the brain's job is to do. So if you say my mother-in-law hates me, then that's the lens that you are going to see every interaction with your mother-in-law through. So when something happens that's neutral, your brain is automatically going to see, told you she hated me. I knew it. I knew she couldn't stand me. I knew she would do this because of how she thinks about me and how she feels about me, right? It just starts and goes. So again, doing this thought download, understanding that my mother-in-law hates me is a story. It is not your situation, right? Okay, it is the story that you're telling yourself. Ask yourself why you're telling it, and then decide how you want to feel instead. How do you want to feel about your mother-in-law? Put down here, how do you want to feel about your mother? And then maybe neutral. You may not be able to get to the point where I love her and she's the best and you're including her into your family as much as possible. That's not necessarily believable. Your feelings may just be that I want to be neutral about her, right? I don't want to spend my entire time together with them in pure hatred and seething underneath. If you just want to be neutral, think about what story you need to tell yourself to get to a neutral place with your mother-in-law. It might be she has her own map that she's coming from, right? Whatever the story needs to be for you to have neutral feelings about your mother-in-law, start there. And the only reason I'm saying all of this, not to feel like it's all on you to be the bigger person and the better person, but you cannot control your husband or your mother-in-law. You can only control your behavior, your thoughts, you choose to tell yourself a certain story. Okay, so that's how we do a thought download, and you can do that with yourself. You can always message me and send me a thought that you're having that I can help you do a download with so that we can see what story you're telling yourself and how we can change that. Okay, the next thing that came up was worrying. And worrying is the cognitive part of anxiety, right? It's really the thoughts, the what ifs, okay? And it goes along often with feelings of anxiety. And just like in here, right? So the story that we tell, our thoughts, our what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I don't do this? What if, all of the what ifs go here and create the feelings of anxiety. So understanding that worrying can be a good thing. Okay, so worrying is nothing that you want to completely get rid of. Though sometimes we do. We have this negative connotation of it and we just don't, oh, I just shouldn't be worrying at all. Well, not necessarily. Worry is a good thing, okay? If you have a test coming up, worrying about your performance on the test will get you to study and find out, maybe ask the professor about that question that you didn't have figured out, or that area that you need a little bit more of information in, right? So worrying gets you to act in a positive way, right? So we can get the things done that we need to study for that test and then feel prepared for the test. So worry can technically be a good thing, right? Thinking of future scenarios that might happen are, is something that is useful and beneficial, right? So we're going away for the day with our kids, and one of them or several of them are still in diapers, right? Worrying helps you to get the diaper bag ready, make sure that you don't run out, make sure that you prepare for what's going to happen if this scenario, happen. What if they fall and play in the mud and I don't have a change of clothes? So you pack a change of clothes. So thinking about what ifs that is very useful, okay, to plan and prepare. What happens is when that worrying is constant and you're in this constant loop of worrying about things that are out of your control, okay? Studying for a test is within your control. Packing a change of clothes for the kids is in your control, okay? But what if I get sick? What if my kids don't get good grades? Then they won't get into college and they won't get a good job. Then, okay, that kind of worrying is what's really going to create this anxiety panic, because those are the things that we cannot control. That's the worrying that is not productive, okay? So my biggest advice and suggestions for worrying is understanding that worry comes from a place of future, okay? I'm worrying about the future, something I cannot control. I can plan for it, I can try to be prepared for it, but at the end of the day, we truly have no idea what is going to happen. And if we constantly try to worry about it, right, we kind of try to worry away our anxiety about the future, but that never works. It just makes it never works. It just makes it worse. So understanding that you're coming from a place of the future, and when you find yourself coming from the place of the future, you want to think, okay, I need to get back in the moment. I need to get back in my body, in the present moment. I need to ground myself, whether that's looking around and finding 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you can touch, 2 things that you can taste, 1 thing that you can smell. And it doesn't have to be those exact numbers, but just a grounding exercise, whether it's squeezing your hands and letting them go and concentrating on that. Whatever brings you back into your body and into the moment is going to help when you find yourself in that worry loop. Okay. Then the next one I wanted to talk about was letting something go. This is a big one for me too. And like, let's say that it's a comment that someone made and you just can't let the comment go. It just has gotten under your skin. It's kind of coming up for you throughout the day where you have yourself busy with something else. And then you think about that comment that the person made. Here, what you want to do then is ask yourself, what meaning are you attaching to this comment? Okay. So let's say that it was a comment that you take as a criticism, whether it's about work, about your house, about your cooking, about how you look, right? Let's say that there was a comment and you took it as a judgment, as a criticism, and you just can't let it go. Okay. Oftentimes, that might mean that whatever the person said, you truly feel about yourself too, right? So, my house is a disaster. I am not a neat freak. I am not someone that cleans constantly and kind of always has things in their place at all. I wish it was, right? It's something I would like to work on. But if someone made a comment about my house being, disorganized or messy or something like that, even though it may be true, I have trouble letting it go because that is an area where I kind of feel shame over, right? That's an area where I beat myself up over, is not having a house that's put together. So even though the comment might be true, because I actually believe it about myself, that's where it doesn't feel good, right? So kind of give the example here that if someone made a comment about your blue hair and you don't have blue hair, that comment's not going to bother you, right? Because it's not true, right? But when someone makes a comment about something and there's a little bit of truth to it, or you believe it as well about yourself, that's when it's really going to bother you. So here is when just you need to know your triggers, right? You need to know what gets under your skin. You need to know those parts of yourself that feel shame or feel, that you sort of criticize yourself over, and understand that that comment probably did not mean as much as you are making it mean by the story that you're telling yourself, right? Because the comment is neutral. The comment doesn't have to mean anything. You have blue hair. I hate your blue hair. I don't have blue hair, so it doesn't bother me. But joking about someone's house or your looks or, whatever it might be, your parenting, your work at your job, then that's when we attach meaning to it. And that's when it becomes a problem and causes the negative feelings. Okay. Snapping at your kids. So, this is a big one and this is difficult. So, when I find myself really sort of snapping at my kids the most is when I realize that I've either not prioritized self-care, right? So I've either not slept well, or I've not moved my body, or, had good food, right? Or had enough water, whatever it may be, those sort of basic self-care needs. I'll find that I am much more irritable. And so when I do that, I think, okay, I really need to take some time for myself, even if it's 15 minutes, to just watch The Real Housewives and do something mindless or read or just sit in my room and not do anything. But I need to give myself that time, which we often don't consider a priority. So we don't allow ourselves that time to do that. And think about your boundaries, right? So one of the things I snap at my kids a lot about is them being loud, right? You actually can probably hear them downstairs in this video. And I am just I'm just like have a super sensitive system. I get overstimulated really easily by loud noises and just like lots of things going on. And so I have to understand what my boundary is, which is what I'm willing to tolerate. And I probably tolerate less noise than other people would. But I need to be okay with that because it's just something, I know that I will get snappy and irritable when that's happening. So I either need to get away from the situation and take some self-care, or I need to say, hey guys, this is my boundary. I just cannot tolerate this level of noise right now, and we need to find something else to do. But the best way to figure out why you're snapping at your kids or your husband or anybody really, but is figuring, being that toddler. Okay, we talked about being a toddler all last week. Being a toddler and asking yourself why. Why is this triggering me? Why is this coming up for me? Why did I just snap at them? But you have to ask yourself that question and give an answer, an honest answer to that question with no judgment. Okay, that's probably the most difficult part about it. You are not going to judge here. You're just being curious. Why do I always seem to snap when this happens, right? Or why am I so irritable when, this is going on, okay? Asking yourself why, like a toddler, until you get to the answers, and then you can go from there and put in some boundaries or self-care practices around that you need to, okay? So then the last one I want to talk about is anxiety. And anxiety could be, our next 30 missions, right? There's just so much to talk about with it. One thing I think I can have you take away from this today, though, with for those of you that are feeling anxiety, especially daily, is this movie theater strategy, okay, that I've come across. And the idea behind the movie theater strategy is thinking about yourself in a movie theater, watching a really scary movie, like super duper jump scare movie, right? And something happens in the movie, it's coming because you know the signs, the music, whatever happens, it's coming. And then there's that jump scare, or there's that, thing that comes out and just scares everybody, and you drop your popcorn and heart is racing and you're sweating and you may even hold your breath or you gasp, right? And then you make the decision to think, oh, it's just the movie. It's just part of the movie. That's what happens in scary movies. I'm safe. I'm in this movie theater sitting next to whoever, eating my popcorn. I'm fine. I'm safe. And you tell your body, hey, it's okay. I'm safe. There's no threat here. And your body comes back down and you can finish watching the movie and enjoying yourself, right? What happens though to us with anxiety is that we have those signs that come up, that jump scare happens, and we think it's real, right? So our anxious thoughts are making us feel as though that jump scare is real, right? That situation, that whatever is happening, wherever our mind is going, is actually a true threat. So in those moments, we have to step back and think, okay, is this a real threat? Am I unsafe? Okay. 99% of the time, the answer is yes, I am safe. Okay. And then you say, okay, all right, anxiety, I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to protect me, but there really is no threat here right now. So I'm going to take some deep breaths to regulate my system and get back into the moment. And then we're going to move on with what we were doing. Okay, so that's my biggest kind of tip for anxiety, is understanding that it really is trying to protect you from a perceived threat. But 99% of the time, the threat is not real. Okay, 99.9% of the time. The threat is imagined, and our brain does not tell the difference between a real or an imagined threat. Okay, so think of the movie theater strategy the next time that anxiety is just really taking over that day. Okay. All right. So, but I also wanted to mention too that if you are finding that anxiety is impacting you daily like this, I do offer a Own Your Anxiety workshop. And I created this workshop based on tools and lessons that I have learned over the years to deal with my own anxiety that was out of control. And I wanted to take ownership over it, right? So I had been to therapy, I had done the positive thinking, and it just wasn't cutting it, right? So I really dove into what truly is going on with anxiety. What is it? Why do we have it? And what can we do about it? And I've gotten to a really great place, developed a great toolbox for myself that I share in this workshop. So it's a 3-day workshop. It teaches you strategies. It teaches you the brain, how the brain works, why anxiety is even a thing. It gives you strategies to deal with it. And then we do some thought downloads together, and we come up with a toolbox for you, a personalized toolbox for you at the end of the 3-day workshop that you can take with you and moving forward in dealing with your anxiety. So if you are interested in this, it's 3 days, it's 1 hour sessions, once a week for 3 weeks, one-on-one with me, just like this, over a Zoom call. And if you are interested, please message me, reach out. You can send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, or you can email me at kateo'rourkecoach@gmail.com. You can actually just reply to this email and let me know, say, hey, tell me more about that anxiety workshop, okay? It's no commitment. It would just be me actually doing a 1 hour phone call with you to find out how anxiety shows up for you. And at the end of that phone call, I'll talk a little bit more about what I do in the workshop. And if it seems like a good fit for you, then we can schedule our time together. If it doesn't seem like it's a fit for you right now, that's okay. But we've at least had a great conversation, and I may be able to give you some insight on what's coming up for you as far as your own anxiety. Okay, so those are your missions. We're going to do thought downloads. We're going to ground ourselves in the moment. We're going to do the movie theater strategy. We're going to take care of our self-care needs when it comes to snapping at our kids or letting comments go. We're going to be that toddler and just asking why incessantly until we get to an answer that we can work with. All right, so it was so great talking to you, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.